Pop Squat, coming at ya. I found something cool today. The video that we're looking at here is actually from like 2 months ago from Wired, and I'm surprised it hasn't popped up sooner in my feed. But this is... I'm missing something here. I'm missing this. I need to move this over here. This is, like I said, from Wired, and it is from Larnell Lewis, who is as it says on screen right here, a drummer, composer, educator. And I've watched some of his stuff before. Cat fur. And he's great. He's really, really great. He's a really amazingly good drummer. He's a good teacher. And I like drumming. I was a drummer in grade school, junior high, high school. That's when I stopped, was after high school. I was a marching band geek in the 80s. And I love that stuff. I still love it to this day. Don't ever do it. Just don't. And I was never really that good of a drummer to go on to be in like whatever college marching band or drum and bugle corps. Yes, there is such a thing as drum and bugle corps. In fact, I think I was just listening to the song Hacker from Death Throes. But why can't I I just was listening to it today. Death Grips samples some fantastic drumming on the big drums that they use for drum and bugle corps, and there is nothing else like that really hard percussive sound that you get from those snare drums. Really fantastic. Anyway, I am very much past the point of being an educated drummer. I know enough to know good drumming, and that's about it. But I saw this come up, and it is Larnell Lewis going through what he is defined as, or someone has defined as, the 13 levels of drumming, from easiest to complex. I started watching a little bit of this, and I was like, I should do this on the channel, because it might be fun for people who either are very casual listeners of music and like appreciate the music, but don't necessarily know a lot about, especially drumming in this case. And might like a little more information, and I may not talk very much through this. We might just be sitting here watching their video, we'll see. But it's also good for people who have been educated in music in the past and may have sort of lost some of that knowledge, like myself, and want to kind of get another look at what's involved in just one instrument, one aspect of drumming. Or one aspect of music, and this is drum set. So it's not like a single snare drum or something like this. But very quickly he gets into some really interesting things, talking about rock versus funk, and you'll see how simple changes to even the beat of music, the drums in music, change what the song is. Like, at its heart, at its core, how it changes it. And it like I said, I watched the first few minutes of it and I was like, I really need to do this and have the rest of it be fresh. So let's jump into this. Larnell Lewis, this is on Wired. I'm not sure if this will get caught for copyright or anything, so maybe it'll be delayed, but let's check this out. It's going to be actually pretty darn cool, and I only made it through like the first three levels maybe, and it went quick, so I'm sure there's a lot more to it later on.
My name is Larnell Lewis, drummer, composer, educator, and today I've been challenged to go through the levels of complexity at the drum kit. This instrument has existed for over 100 years. There have been tons of interpretations on it. Just for today, though, we're gonna hang out in my world, and we're gonna go through my interpretation of complexity on the drums. So level 1 is the bass drum. As a little bit of a
So I want to point that out. He says this is his interpretation. So if you have heard other things about like the complexity of drumming and bass drum, or not bass drums, drumming and drum kits, this is just what he's doing. So this may come from a whole bunch of people, and he's distilled it down into what he thinks is the core of it, but it's still very interesting.
Precursor, we're dealing in 4/4 time. What that really explains is the value of the note and how many of those quarter notes exist in the bar. I like to put the bass drum on 1 and 3. That's how we're going to start.
So I want to explain that too. So 4/4 means there can be 4 notes in between each beat, and each bar holds 4 notes. So it's counting right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. But you could go 1 EN to 2 EN to 3 EN to 4 EN, and there's 4 split up between each of those beats.
Level 2, we're going to add the snare drum. I like to consider the snare drum the backbeat. That's a very common phrase that you'll hear in drumming. It's similar to clapping. We're going to put the snare drum, or your clapping.
I have never, ever connected snare drum with clapping, and it actually kind of blew my mind earlier when he said that. I was like, yes, of course that's what it is. That's all a snare drum is a clap.
On beats 2 and beats 4. And that sounds like this. Let's take it up a notch. Level 3, the hi-hat. This is a really interesting kit piece, meaning one of the parts of the drum kit. And for the hi-hat, it's something that you can do consistently. We're gonna actually play the hi-hat on all 4 quarter notes. Now, let's put it all together. Altogether, you call that a groove. Another term for that is a drum pattern. I'm gonna play 2 grooves. One is a funk groove. I will evolve into that. And the next one's a rock groove.
This is absolutely the coolest thing. I never had music explained to me like this, and I really wish somebody had explained to it like this. Explained it to me like this. But just look at how this transition happens and how important it is to the overall feel of a song and the style of a song. It's absolutely incredible.
Which I will also evolve into. You may have noticed with the hi-hat, you were hearing a really sloshy, extended sound. That was actually being achieved by me raising my left foot just a little bit, which allows the cymbals to spread apart and gives them that shimmering, sizzling sound. So when I say open hi-hat, when I say closed hi-hat, all right. Beats that we've been hearing are these quarter notes, and I'm playing what are called additional eighth notes, but I'm accenting those as well. In funk, you'll probably hear more of a tighter hi-hat sound. With rock, however, you will hear more open hi-hat throughout the groove as you're...
I never knew that. I could not have ever told you, oh yeah, rock music has an open hi-hat sound, like if it uses a hi-hat. Never, ever could have told you that. And same with funk. I couldn't have told you it was a closed hi-hat with that really tight
constant pattern. When you're dealing with funk, there's a term called on the one, which means you're putting the emphasis on that downbeat, which is with the bass drum. Rock also shares that, but it's a little more evenly spaced in terms of the energy that you're putting on all of those beats. So one emphasizes the downbeat, one smooths it out, and you have clear sailing from top to bottom. It might feel like it's a completely different style, but they are neighboring styles. And the complexity might just be in the way that you play them. But the patterns themselves aren't always more.
So I think right about here, maybe even a little bit earlier, is where I stopped. So all of this is going to be new to me.
Complex in one way than another. To help us lock in this groove a little bit more, we should add some music. This is a song of mine called Change Your Mind. It's a little bit faster. Get ready. Let's go for a ride. Let's move on. Level 5, rudiments. Rudiments are a grouping of notes or rhythms that are also defined by what we like to call stickings, mentions of when you play your right hand versus your left hand. The single stroke is a consistent set of notes alternating between your right hand and your left hand. Now, double strokes are 2 hits per hand. Paradiddle is a grouping of notes which is a right, left, right, right.
That is absolutely the way I was taught to play, is always alternate your hands for every single beat.
4 notes can also be played the opposite way, left, right, left, left. Now, a little bit faster for the right-handed and left-handed paradiddle, alternating back and forth. you can actually create a little more of an expression with what you're playing by adding accents. Accents are when you are playing one note louder than another. I'm going to put the two paradiddles together now. I'm going to be accenting the first note of each group of 4 notes. Then the second time around, I'm going to accent the second note of each grouping of 4 notes. I just want to talk a little bit about the hi-hat bark.
I love drumming. I love it. I just wish I were better at it.
Where we are lifting our foot up, hitting the hi-hat, and then closing our foot right back down again. This takes a level of coordination because you need to time when you're opening your hi-hat or when you're lifting your foot up against when you hit the hi-hat. I could do it the other way around where I hit the hi-hat and then lift my foot, but it won't be the same effect. So you lift your foot, strike the hi-hat, and then bring your foot back down. You can also do that in a variety of times. So you can make it longer or extremely short. But you can make it a little more complex by adding another counter rhythm or syncopation, let's say on your hi-hat or on your bass drum.
Think of a good drummer and how much they have to be paying attention to something to anticipate, okay, I'm going to hit over there, so my foot needs to come up, despite everything else going on, slightly before I'm going to hit that hi-hat so that it has a little bit of air to breathe to create that note that you want. So you're not even hitting on or you're not lifting your foot on the note that you want to hit on. You would undo it slightly before and then put your foot. I mean, there's a reason why really good drummers are insane to watch, and you don't really know how good they are unless you know how to actually drum. And I mean, this is a perfect example. Like, just think about anticipating, okay, I'm going to hit over there. I need to raise my foot and then hit, and there's so much more going on a drum set.
Or even on your snare drum. Now, a syncopation is when you accent something that's other than the strong beats or the average beats that you'd play in a bar. Now, let's put it all together. Next level, more complex grooves. Now, the groove that you just heard was similar to the pattern that we've learned already, but I've actually added a couple of elements, and I'm going to break it down. Let's see what we get. So for the most part, I was playing 1 and 3 on the bass drum. I've played an open hi-hat on the downbeat. There was another skip note or added 16th note that I was playing just before I played the downbeat. I've also played some other rhythms or syncopations on the bass drum. Using syncopation, you can create elaborate rhythms or even very simple rhythms that complement any drum groove that you're playing. Actually snuck a paradiddle in there. Right hand on the hi-hat, left hand on the snare. Next level, polyrhythms. Now, polyrhythms is next in the level of complexity, really because it takes just a little bit more than a level of our understanding of coordination. A polyrhythm is actually 2 rhythms layered on top of each other. It makes for a really interesting pattern that you hear overall. The most standard version of a polyrhythm you'll hear is the 3/2. Another one is the 4/3. So I'm going to go from 2/3, and then I'm going to go to 4/3. A little more complex. This one is going to be 5/4. Now, for the purpose of making...
Do you want to try that? Because it's kind of crazy, right? Like, one hand is counting even 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the other one is counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the same amount of space. It's crazy.
So that we understand what this sounds like in a musical context, we're going to add the music again. level, orchestration, which by the way, is just me taking a rhythm and putting one of my hands on a different part of the drum set, but playing the same rhythm. Sidebar, 4-way independence, 4-way coordination. All of your limbs are playing different rhythms. It's multiple rhythms happening on multiple kit pieces at the same time.
I mean, come on, how cool is that? That's just absolutely fantastic. It's just, I mean, look at the beat structure here. Right hand is doing just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Left hand in between, right foot, left foot doing completely different things. And you have to keep track of all of that. And then you have to also keep count not only in what you're doing, but you have to understand where you are in the song. Everything is bar by bar by bar by bar. You have to understand what's going to come up next in the song, where you need to change to, everything. I mean, he's going to get into all of that, but just think about where this level is. And I mean, could you do this? Could you do your each limb doing something different? Right hand, left hand, right foot, left foot. It's insane. And then they also have things like you can do a double bass, and it's absolutely, I mean, it's amazing stuff. I love it.
You've built a solid base through the rhythm, through rudiments, polyrhythms. You can take all of those levels and you could reorchestrate anything that we've done so far. If you remember our paradiddle from earlier, I'm going to play it on the snare drum, I'm going to take my right hand, and I'm going to continue with that concept, moving my right hand around to different parts of the drum kit. First tom, second tom, this other drum that I have here, which is a snare drum.
And so this is the importance of the basics, right? Once you can get down your notes, your count, the various rhythms that you're doing, you can just move to different parts of the drum kit, and it's going to create different sounds and a different feeling, and you've got different notes that are coming out of your different. It's just, you got to get those basics down first, and it's really, really cool.
My floor tom, and of course, we can't forget the rest of the kit, crash cymbals. I have another one that's a similar crash cymbal, has a bunch of holes in it, so if I play it very lightly, I get a really nice sizzle. This is called a splash. This is a trash former on top, and I have another splash underneath it as well. Here's another stack over here, the cymbal sandwich. 3 cymbals here. One on top is a 16-inch cymbal. The one all the way on the bottom is a 14-inch china. And in the middle is a really interesting looking cymbal that has a lot of little holes in it. Has a really nice, trashy, rattly sound, like this. And you can't forget the ride cymbal. Now, let's put this drum kit to good use. Paradiddle, reorchestrating, right hand moving around to the different kit pieces.
So one of the things he's not going to mention, I assume, he's not going to mention is how different each of those drum heads feel too. Like each drum head and each cymbal doesn't push back against you in the same way as any of the others. And so you get a very different feel. Like you have to know your drums well enough to know, okay, I need to hit this one a little bit harder for it to bounce back enough for me to move on to the next drum over here, the next cymbal over here. Same thing, you have to be aware of like where on the stick you're hitting the cymbal, because if you hit it on the thicker part of the stick, it's going to have a different sound and a different amount of force you can put to it, as opposed to the tip of the stick, or even the part that's sort of beveled a little bit. You will get different sounds from all of those too, and so you really are. I mean, it sounds stupid to say, but you are playing your drumstick even as you are playing your drums.
And now, gotta have some music. Moving the paradiddle around, adding a little more spice. The beauty of orchestration is that it gives you a ton of options without needing to change too much rhythmically or with the rudiments that you're actually playing. It actually moves you right into the next level, which is drum fills. A drum fill happens somewhere on the drum kit that takes you into another section of a song or helps to elevate the energy. Sometimes it helps to bring the energy a little bit lower. Any of the things that we've discussed before, you can actually make those happen as drum fills. I'm gonna play a drum groove, and near the end of the drum groove, before I stop, I'm going to play a drum fill. Here's another example of that. And the third option, because why not? That's the power of drum fills. The first one was probably a little more complex in terms of it had more rhythms going on. The second one didn't have as many rhythms, and it stayed on a couple of kit pieces. And of course, the last fill that I did was really sparse, meaning there wasn't a lot of information, a lot of drumming happening, and it gave that sense of going down a gear or we're about to get a little bit slower. Now, for something a little more advanced, a 30-second note drum fill. Here's another option, a little more wild, some crashes, sprinkle some stuff around. Moving on from drum fills, we have embellishments. Some people might think embellishments belong just a little bit earlier, but I actually like to add embellishments or ornamentation after understanding drum fills. When you know how to play a drum fill, you can always push the envelope and embellish a certain part of the drum fill. It's really just that added expression to the moment to take it up another notch. I'm actually going to level up a drum pattern into a drum fill with more embellishments as I go along. There was a lot of improvised information and playing happening. I started out with a main pattern, and the type of things that I did were to break up the monotonous flow. So now I'm adding a really interesting element maybe on the hi-hat. There was some activity that happened on the bass drum. From there, I started adding some toms. At this point, you're getting more energy, more excitement. And I'm adding bits and pieces, adding cymbals, adding toms. It's getting even bigger to the point where you may not even recognize the original pattern, but now we are adding to the story. We're adding to the excitement and take you even higher and higher and higher until you get lost inside of all of it. I'm gonna try it again, but this time I'm gonna put a little more emphasis on some of the lower drums. I'm going to do what's called grounding the pattern in a different way by accenting rhythms that feel like they're connected to the stronger beats that we've been hearing, whether it's beat one.
And one of the things he kind of mentioned, but I think is important to really point out, or at least I feel like it is his bass drum is really being very consistent because he always wants to have the count in mind because he needs to, everything is based on that. And he has to know what that is because not only is he counting along to the beats to be able to hit the notes at the right point and have everything straight, it also helps us as the listener to connect to the music and stay connected to the music and dance and have a consistent beat, and for everybody else in the band to know where we are and is he getting to the point, like he's got 16 bars that he's got to fill with a drum break. We know what those 16 bars are because we can count them out. 1 2 3 4 2 2 3 4. So he has to be keeping all of that in mind as well as a member of the band.
1 2 3 or 4. Here we go.
Nice.
I was grounding the overall pattern by playing eighth notes on the floor toms so that you felt this really big having lower tones at that part of the beat was a really cool embellishment and helped to ground what you were hearing. Then anything I added, whether it was toms or hi-hat, these were all rhythms that took me towards these bigger embellishments. Eventually, I changed the bass drum pattern, so now the core drum pattern felt a little bit different, but it had the same spirit. Let's pull it all together. You got grooves, polyrhythms, four-way coordination, embellishments, orchestration. So many of these things are going to come together in a drum solo. What you're about to hear is the last and final vamp section of Change Your Mind going into the drum solo. That's definitely one way to level up your heart rate. My goodness. Pro tip, make sure you're breathing when you're playing the drums. One thing I've come to appreciate about the levels of complexity of the drums is that once I understood from drumming how to find my voice, I realized that I didn't have to always be complex. I didn't have to always play really fast, because the purpose for me is to drive home a story or drive home a feeling. The art is in the way that you can hang left, right, or go straight through all of these levels of complexity. I hope you learned something, and if you didn't, you better hit rewind and make sure you go out and learn how to express yourself. It's levels to this thing.
So great stuff. I mean, really, really, really good. I could learn so much from him. And I did just in this. The other thing that he doesn't mention in here that I think is also kind of interesting, and you may have noticed as he was playing, is you can hit a drum harder or softer, or a cymbal harder or softer than just the same thing over and over. And he did sort of do some of that, where some of it was a little a little softer, or a little harder or louder, and that's all up to you. Like, you get to determine how hard are you going to hit things, because the force you put into it produces the sound. And he didn't go into that at all. He didn't go into, and in fact that could probably be a 14th level of complexity inserted somewhere, is just how hard you hit the drum to control the sound that it makes. There's no notes necessarily in drum, like do re mi fa sol la ti do style notes, A B C, A B. I don't even remember the fucking notes. Like, I never had to learn them, so whatever the hell they are, A B E. Is it all A B C D E? I have no idea. That tells you how well trained I am in music, but that's the sort of thing that isn't in drumming typically, except for like a timpani or bells and xylophone, things like that. And those are all, except for the timpani, those are all, the notes are basically printed right on the bells or the xylophone, whatever you're hitting. So the force with which you hit the drum or the cymbal or the bass drum is also a piece of the art of being a drum player, or a drummer. a drum player. I love drums. I love playing drums. I haven't done it in way too long, and it's kind of a shame. But hey, guess what? Once you get out of school, there's not a whole lot of drumming going on in your life if it has not grown to become a huge important part of your life. Cool stuff. Loved it. Love this guy. Definitely want to check out more by him. I think he does a regular series with Wired, and it's absolutely fantastic. He just does amazing stuff. I hope you like this. I hope you get something out of it. I hope you don't mind me blathering, talking over what he's already doing, but it's fun for me. I wanted to watch it, and I was like, hey, I'll just do it for the channel. So I hope you enjoyed. Pop Squat. Check it out. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye-bye.